Britain invented the tank. In September 1916, on the muddy fields of the Somme, a lumbering steel rhombus crawled toward German trenches and changed the nature of warfare forever. But exactly one of the tanks on this list would go on to earn a reputation so fearsome that German soldiers in North Africa reportedly refused to advance when they spotted its silhouette on the horizon. And the story of why that machine terrified an entire army is something we will reveal later in this video. This is the complete story of British tank development. From the trench-crossing monsters of the First World War, through the disastrous cruiser tank failures of the interwar years, to the legendary machines that helped turn the tide in North Africa, and finally to the modern Challenger series that still forms the backbone of British armor today. It is a story of brilliant invention, catastrophic engineering mistakes, and machines that occasionally succeeded not because of their design, but in spite of it. Mark I was not just Britain's first tank. It was the world's first tank, and it was born from a specific brutal problem. Barbed wire, machine guns, and trenches had made the Western Front a graveyard of frontal assaults. The Mark I weighed nearly 28 tons, moved at a crawling 3.7 miles per hour, and carried a crew of 8 men who worked in temperatures that regularly exceeded 50 degrees Celsius inside the unventilated hull, choking on engine exhaust and cordite fumes with every shot fired. Its rhomboid shape, with tracks running the entire length of the vehicle, was specifically engineered to climb over trench walls that would have stopped any conventional wheeled vehicle instantly. When 32 Mark is rolled into combat at Flers-Courcelette on September 15, 1916, German soldiers had never seen anything like it. Many broke and ran before a single shot was fired. But mechanical reliability was catastrophic. Nearly half the tanks broke down before even reaching the front line, a pattern that would haunt British tank design for the next 2 decades. Mark IV and Mark V by 1917. Engineers had refined the original design into the Mark IV, correcting many of the Mark I's most dangerous flaws, including internal fuel tanks that had turned earlier tanks into death traps when struck by enemy fire. The Mark IV's true moment came at the Battle of Cambrai in November 1917, when nearly 400 tanks attacked in mass formation for the first time in history, punching a 6-mile hole through German lines in a single day, a distance that had previously taken months of costly infantry assaults to achieve. The Mark V that followed introduced something revolutionary. A single driver could now control the tank alone, thanks to an epicyclic steering system, freeing up crew members who had previously been required simply to help turn the vehicle. Vickers, medium Mark II during the 1920s. Britain briefly held the most advanced tank force on the planet with the Vickers medium Mark II, a genuinely innovative design with a rotating turret and reasonable speed. But British military leadership, exhausted by the financial devastation of the First World War, allowed the tank corps to stagnate through chronic underfunding for the next 15 years. Watching as other nations studied British tank doctrine and built upon it while Britain itself fell dangerously behind. Cruiser tank Mki through Mk4, A9 through A13. This is where British tank development entered its darkest chapter, obsessed with a doctrinal split between slow, heavily armored infantry tanks and fast, lightly armored cruiser tanks meant to exploit breakthroughs like cavalry. British designers produced a string of cruiser tanks that were mechanically unreliable disasters. The A9 and A10 suffered from chronically weak suspension systems. The A13 rushed into production after evaluating a Christie suspension system purchased from an American inventor. Promised speed, but delivered a maintenance nightmare, with crews reporting track failures so frequent that some units lost more tanks to mechanical breakdown during road march than they ever lost to enemy fire. When these cruiser tanks were sent to France in 1940, their thin armor proved catastrophically inadequate against German anti-tank guns, and many were simply abandoned by crews during the desperate retreat to Dunkirk, their engines failing faster than the roads could carry them home. Covenanter and Crusader. The Covenanter cruiser tank was so plagued by overheating problems in its radiator system that it was never actually deployed in combat, spending the entire war as a training vehicle in Britain while soldiers joked bitterly that the enemy would defeat it simply by waiting for it to break down. The Crusader that followed fared only marginally better. Faster and more numerous, it saw extensive action in North Africa, but its main gun was consistently outmatched by German armor, and its mechanical reliability remained a persistent weakness throughout the Desert Campaign, forcing British commanders to accept tank losses to breakdown that would have been considered unacceptable in any other army. Matilda. While the cruiser tanks embarrassed Britain, the Matilda II very nearly saved it. Heavily armored with up to 78mm of steel at a time when most anti-tank guns simply could not penetrate it. The Matilda II earned the nickname Queen of the Desert during the early North African campaign, when it advanced through Italian positions virtually immune to return fire. Erwin Rommel himself, upon encountering Matildas defending against his forces, was forced to redeploy his precious 88mm anti-aircraft guns in a direct anti-tank role, the only weapon in the German arsenal powerful enough to reliably stop it. This is the tank referenced in the hook of this video. German infantry, who had faced Matildas in earlier engagements, reportedly grew visibly nervous when they appeared again, having learned firsthand that their standard anti-tank weapons were simply useless against its armor. Churchill tank named after the Prime Minister himself. The Churchill was designed from painful lessons learned during the disastrous Dieppe raid, where earlier tanks had proven utterly unsuited to the terrain. Slow but astonishingly capable of climbing steep gradients that would stop any other tank of the era, the Churchill became the platform for some of the strangest and most creative specialized vehicles of the war, including flame-throwing variants and mine-clearing versions that helped clear the beaches during the D-Day landings, absorbing punishment that would have destroyed lighter vehicles instantly. Sherman Firefly. Perhaps the strangest entry on this entire list is the Sherman Firefly, because it was not originally a British tank at all. Facing a desperate shortage of guns powerful enough to defeat German Panther and Tiger tanks in Normandy, British engineers took American-built Sherman tanks and crammed in their own devastating 17-pounder anti-tank gun, a weapon so large it required the radio operator to be relocated and the gun to be mounted at an awkward angle just to fit inside the turret. The result was a peculiar hybrid that could finally reliably kill German heavy tanks at combat ranges, and German tank crews reportedly learned to identify and prioritize destroying Fireflies first in any engagement, recognizing them by their distinctively longer barrel even at a distance. Understanding that this modified American hull with a British gun was the single greatest threat on the battlefield. Centurion emerging just after the Second World War ended, the Centurion represented everything British designers had learned from years of humiliating mechanical failures. Combining strong armor, a powerful 20-pounder gun later upgraded to a 105mm weapon, and genuine mechanical reliability, the Centurion became one of the most successful tank exports in history, seeing combat with multiple nations across decades of conflicts from the Korean War through the Arab-Israeli wars, earning a reputation that finally erased the ghosts of the failed interwar cruiser tanks. Chieftain. The Chieftain pushed British tank philosophy toward heavier armor and a massive 120mm rifled gun, the largest tank cannon in NATO service at the time of its introduction. However, Its Leyland L-60 multi-fuel engine proved notoriously unreliable, plagued by persistent overheating and mechanical failures that echoed uncomfortably with Britain's darkest tank engineering mistakes from decades earlier. A reminder that even a nation with a century of tank-building experience could still repeat old mistakes. Challenger 1. Born partly from Iranian-ordered tank designs that were repurposed after the fall of the Shah's government, the Challenger 1 introduced Chobham composite armor to British service, a genuinely revolutionary armor technology at the time. It would later achieve the longest confirmed tank kill in history during the Gulf War, destroying an Iraqi tank at a range exceeding 5 kilometers, a shot that seemed almost impossible given the technology of the era. Challenger 2, the current backbone of British armor. The Challenger 2 features substantially upgraded composite armor and improved fire control systems. Despite entering service in 1998, it has proven remarkably durable in modern combat and during operations in Iraq. A single Challenger 2 famously survived being struck by more than 70 rocket-propelled grenades in one engagement without losing a single crew member, an almost unbelievable testament to its protective capabilities. From the mud-choked Mark I that first proved tanks could break the deadlock of trench warfare, through decades of underfunded interwar disasters, to the Matilda that terrified Rommel's finest divisions, and finally to the Challenger 2, a tank capable of shrugging off dozens of rocket-propelled grenades in a single battle. British tank design has always followed the same painful pattern: catastrophic failure, followed by hard-won brilliance born directly from that failure. Britain invented the tank in 1916 out of pure desperation. And every machine on this list, whether triumph or humiliation, represents another chapter in the nation's century-long attempt to perfect the very weapon it created.